Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's use case steering team for ODTN. And please, if you want, just write your name under the attendees in the agenda, and let's just dive in. So, as you guys know, at ONF Connect, we had the reference design review for members. So, for the people from companies here that are members, I encourage you to take a look at the reference design document that we published as reference design team of ODTN. That is at the first link over there, and you should basically see this page. By clicking here, you can see the blue button. You can see the reference design document, the PDF of the document. And with the red button, which is something that I really want to highlight, is that you can provide the feedback using Jira. We have a specific Jira under the Open Networking Wiki, which is targeted at feedback for the reference design. So you open a Jira ticket. We, as the reference design team, collect enough Jira tickets, discuss them in one or two calls, and then provide feedback and update the reference design in a new version for then public release at some point later this year. As you guys can see on this page, the review process and the call can is scheduled to end February 1st, 2019, and I hope we can get some comments on the reference design as it is today. If you have problems accessing this page, I would encourage you to try and do this, which basically asks you to set up an OpenNetworking.org wiki account. And then we want you to use your work email, and so when we get a registration, we're going to grant people members only access, and you guys can see the reference design over here. So I encourage everybody to go and take a look at it, read through it. It's not long, and provide some comments. So me and the rest of the reference design team can work on those comments. Any questions? Any thoughts on this?
Sorry, I didn't answer your email, but I don't have access yet, but I will try to go the process the method you showed just now to get the credential to access this reference document review.
Sure. Thanks, Dominique. Let me know how it goes so I can smoothen up the process. Okay. After that, I wanted to discuss something that was brought up during our in-person meeting, which was the physical impairments information, and that was very well summarized by Arturo in one slide, which I included in our presentation about the architecture, actually here. So going through this, this specifically targets the power discussion. Arturo, do you want to guide us through it?
Hi all. Yeah, sure. So basically, I was like proposing what it will be the in our opinion from Telefonica next step in the phase 1.5 after the demo that we are setting up for OFC. So basically introduce a set of constraints that I wanted to, let's say, propose in order to consider more constraints in the establishment of the end-to-end optical channel. I assess it by two different workflows that was basically involving the order on which you trigger the different components of the end-to-end service, the different configurations composing the end-to-end service. I don't know, maybe I joined a little bit late and I miss why it is discarded the option A, but well, basically the option A was like considering that the NMC request it was sent in advance to the OpenLine system. So after the OpenLine system was answering with a suitable NMC channel, the transponder was configured taking into account the possible physical impairments degradation in terms of OSNR, chromatic dispersion, and other kind of impairments that will affect the signal when it is traversed through the OLS following the network media channel that it has been proposed. And the other option, it will be the other way around, on which basically the ONOS controller will send the NMC, including the OpenLine system endpoints, and relies on the OpenLine system path computation, assuming that it will compute the best possible path in terms of optical performance. And based on that, the OpenLine system controller will answer and will and the ONOS will decide if this NMC provided by the OLS will satisfy the requirements specified by the transponders. So basically, is that in this case the ONOS has the decision on whether the NMC provided by the OLS is suitable for the constraints introduced by the transponders or not. And this is like the two possibilities that was coming to us in order to let's move the current objectives of the phase 1.5 into a physical validation or physical impairment validation scenario, considering the partial disaggregation, not the fully disaggregation.
Yes. So why so you asked why I actually discard option A, because so I didn't discard it per se. I actually put it in on like two phases, you could say. That at the moment, this one is option B would be more close to what we're currently doing, or at least planning to do, while this is actually more. Uh, since it requires programming more stuff to the devices, it actually further along the line. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, it actually introduced much more like constraints for the service provisioning that is the NMC service provisioning request that is sent to the OLS, and this is something that it is not even supported by TAPI 2.1. I mean, we started this discussion in the last phase of the standardization of TAPI 2.1, and we didn't finally agree on a common understanding on how this could be modeled into the into TAPI models. So we stopped there. So I agree with you. I think that we are closer to option B than the other way around.
Sorry, Arturo, this is Ramon. One question that is still not very clear from me is which macroscopic, regardless of then we can have OLS from a vendor that have additional constraints, but macroscopically, which workflow do we get? The one where we impose the network media channel to the OLS? I think it's, my understanding is this, instead of just asking, let's say, a requirement in terms of width and letting the OLS assign as the actual central frequency, right?
Sorry, I was muted. I think that mainly the discussion is on whether you introduce physical impairment constraints into the request to the OLS path computation, or if you rely on the best possible performance that the path computation features of the OLS will provide you, and then you basically verifies that this is like fulfilling the requirements of the.
I understand. My point was not without going into the physical impairments, which is the second degree. The first degree is to be clear that the frequency slot that it's used for the network media channel is let's say constrained by ONOS or is constrained by the OLS. In some case, ONOS can just request a given frequency or a spectrum width, and it's the OLS who assigns the nominal central frequency and the bands. And the other approach is ONOS requests the network media channel, but also specifying the nominal central frequency. I understand that the second one is the one that we're choosing, right?
Yeah, actually, yes, that was my take as well. I mean, maybe this we can confirm it with people from MAPA as well. But my understanding was that we were like requesting just the two endpoints of the OLS, and then that the information about which was the channel placed into the spectrum was provided by the OLS, and based on that we were going to configure the transceivers.
Hello, it's Rafael from Alva here. So I think it's only limited because we are having such a fixed setup in Telefónica's lab, right?
Yes, I understand that for a given setup and for a given OLS, we have constraints and we have color interfaces, and some of them are like fixed wavelength and so on. But macroscopically, even if we don't think now about these specific constraints that are discovered when we connect to the OLS and we are aware of what are the tunability, or that's fine, it's discovered, it's additional constraints during computation. But in my opinion, the main message is that it's still ONOS who, or the orchestrator, call it as you wish, who, taking into account the constraints given by the OLS and the transceivers, ends up computing the central frequency, and that central frequency is passed to the OLS during provisioning. Rather than saying, I want just this amount of a spectrum, and the OLS assigns a nominal central frequency that it sees fit.
I was understanding the opposite, Ramon. Sorry, I was understanding that that was calculated by the OLS. Oh, so your take here is basically that the routing and wavelength assignment is done by the PCE that is inside ONOS, and that's like the
taking into account whatever constraint comes from the OLS, of course, yes. But that was my understanding, because we had a similar problem when we were doing things like this for layer 2 and talking about VLANs. In some cases, we were requesting like a VLAN connectivity, if you want to call it like this, and it was the equivalent of the OLS who told you, okay, you have a point-to-point connectivity using VLAN 15, and it was the equivalent of the OLS who was assigning the actual VLAN. We were just requesting a VLAN. In the other approach, we were saying we want connectivity with VLAN 12. So the same can be said of the lambda or nominal central frequency. In one case, it's I'm requesting a network media channel for 100 gigahertz of a spectrum, and then the OLS says, okay, use 191.3 terahertz as nominal central frequency with this width, or I take into account whatever constraint there is for tunability for the transceiver, the OLS, and something, and then I send the request saying I want a network media channel using this N and this M. My understanding is the later one is the one that we're targeting, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I will not say no. I mean, this is, in my opinion, something that maybe we didn't discuss among. Well, maybe we discussed it, but we didn't maybe agree on it yet. I was just going to point out that I think I reviewed this in the past before, but I take a quick look into the TAPI models, and right now I don't see the extensions for the network media channel in order to define which is the target spectrum that you want for the service. I saw that as OTSI extensions, and potentially we could use that in order to carry out this use case. But yeah, I mean, maybe today was important that maybe Karthik was here and we can ask him directly this, but I don't see the NMC extensions within the photonic media model in order to specify in the request of the connectivity service the upper and lower frequency of the spectrum that you want to use by this network media channel. Anyway, this is a technical comment that probably we can discuss more in detail. And regarding the target, honestly, I think that there is a value on both, but we can target. I mean, we can target the end-to-end path computation and routing and wavelength assignment within the ONOS, and it's going to be fine for me.
Okay. So why
I will suggest to put. Sorry, Andrea, that I interrupt you. I will suggest to put an open point of discussion with Karthik regarding the feasibility of expressing the frequency slot for a target media channel in TAPI 2.1.
Okay.
In the connectivity service. Yeah. Okay. Enough.
Okay. Okay, then we can do that. Okay, so let's postpone this discussion a bit. I started also in the same slide set. I started a work on the power configuration, which goes at the moment towards kinda a option B approach, starting just with the power, which so if the power is there was a discussion back in this mailing list if the power was fixed on a port or it was dynamic on a port. So if it's dynamic, we need to ask for the connectivity service to the OLS, and at the same time we retrieve the wavelength, we retrieve also the power. And if then we configure the power to the transponder through the power config behavior. Instead, if it's static, we do it the same way we provision. We basically annotate the port during discovery, and then use the same power config behavior to issue the request to the transponder. Does that make sense? No thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it makes sense. Regarding the dynamic power configuration, the expected power value to be provisioned by the transponder is something that I think that is not really currently supported by TAPI. I think that you can
no,
see
sorry.
which
This is the other way around. So the OLS gives us a power either statically or dynamically, depending on the request, and then we provision it on the transponders via OpenConfig.
That's correct, but then I mean the OLS should give you this value either if it is static or if it is dynamic, but it is something that should be provided by the OLS in the answer to the service provisioning, right?
Either service
If you take a look,
Sorry, Ramon.
Yeah, I think you're both right. The thing is that in theory, for a production system, ideally the OLS has to have something to say regarding what power it desires you to transmit on the incoming port, on the ingress port. Uh, Usually, the operator of the OLS wants to avoid that every client or every black link, or call it as you wish, transmits at full power, because he says, okay, I'm putting full power, and then I'm sure my signal will reach the other end. This is something, it's like not reasonable. So usually it's the OLS which, after several interactions, the OLS has to say, for this SIP, for this incoming port, you have to transmit at these dBms and at maximum, or give you a power range. But this is something that it's not easily supported from a workflow point of view and from a protocol point of view. So you're both right. Even if it's a static or dynamic, it's how do we compute the optimum power that we have to configure the transceiver with. And this is a dynamic power computation. Regardless of the actual configuration then in OpenConfig, it has, in theory, to involve the OLS as well. But this is something that the actual protocols, we don't have it, as far as I know, in an easy way, because it's also, it involves like a first request, and if I want to go from here to here, what's the power that I should put? Now, how do we overcome this? Overcoming this, it's either we have a pre-planned power management, and we know from that SIP to that SIP we should use this power, or we have a basic, let's put everywhere 10 dBms and be done with it. This is at least the very first approach for targeting next milestone. But the actual discussion of how do we do a proper power configuration from an end-to-end perspective, this is a bit more complicated.
Yeah, I agree. Rafael, do you have anything on this?
No, I have nothing to add. It was perfectly covered. So I need also to consult some things with our hardware guys.
Okay, then let's do this then.
Yes.
I'll add a comment here. TBD in next calls, depending on more information. We can keep the discussion ongoing and discuss it on next time. Okay. Thanks for that. Okay, great. Let me give you a recap of also the discussion some of the people had from this call had on the decision between OCH or OMS port. So, as you might remember, there was a discussion last time regarding the choice of OMS or OCH to express the type of port of the open line system. So this week we had a discussion, very productive one, with Arturo, Ramon, and others, Nick and others inside and Alessio, inside this group. And what we came up with is that at the moment, for the first implementation targeting the OFC demo, we're gonna go towards just using the OCH ports in order for it to work kind of out of the box. With existing ONOS software, especially inside the intent subsystem, which is what we're using. Then, since the ONOS model does not fully support a flexi-grid approach, what we will start looking into is actually moving and inserting into ONOS and then moving the port representation of the OLS to a full flexi grid with NMC and OTSI information and models. So you will see the driver, and maybe we can discuss it later with Arturo, since the patch came up just like this afternoon. The driver will, for the OLS in the first initial implementation, will still have the OCH port, and in the meantime, while we do that, we start looking at what is missing, for example, the flexi-grid capability, and then we put inside all the needs for, like, after the demo, the OFC timeframe demo, we're gonna go in and actually add full support for flexi-grid, for NMC and OTSI. As a stepstone, to fully support the OCH grid, the OCH signal type at this moment, I will put in an OCH signal undefined for the initial discovery of the port. Later, the OCH signal information will be gathered and fulfilled by a lambda query behavior. Did I miss anything, Arturo, Ramon? I think that sums it up pretty much.
That was correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So as a minor comment, we updated TAPI 2.1.1 in ONOS, thanks to Hiroki who did the work, and thanks also to Ramon, who this morning fixed a bug that was in the implementation that prevented us to have the proper file loaded. I also did a minor fix. I was actually working on the same thing at the same time, but I also did a minor fix. So thanks for that, both Hiroki and Ramon.
One comment on this.
Yes.
This is to be follow-up because I'm still seeing problems. I'm having cases where I'm having, I don't know, 14 devices of netconf.
Okay.
I see in the logs that I have like TAPI, node, ref, and they are all listed, the 15 devices.
Yes.
But then you do the get context from the TAPI MBI, and for some reason I'm only listing a subset of them, and I didn't figure out yet why. But just to say that it's still not way to go, not clear, no green light yet.
Okay, maybe
I'm trying to reproduce, but I'm having problems to do it. So, but it's on my pending list.
Okay, maybe if you have more information, just send it to me. I can also start looking at it, at least a way to try and reproduce it. And
yeah, if you want to start reproducing something, I suggest, for example, that you have I don't know, 12 netconf devices or 15. If you want to limit the scope, comment the part of the application where you do the add port and add link. Just focus on the nodes, so just don't call the system to add ports and add links. And after you add the 15 devices, it can be 15 transceivers if you want, you will see in the logs that you have 15 TAPI node refs, and then you should be able to retrieve the TAPI context with the TAPI topology, and the 15 nodes should be listed in the TAPI, and I don't get it. So it's just, if you want to work on your side, it would be very welcome as well.
Okay, yes. I'll file a bug and try to work on this and try
to reproduce it yourself first, if you can do that. I'm also trying on my side to have a clear way of reproducing it. But if you can just add a bunch of netconf devices all at the same time, like I'm adding you from 1 to 15, then you will see the whole 15 netconf sessions being established. And in theory, when a device is added, it should be added to the TAPI context. But then if you retrieve it via a REST get context, not all are listed in the JSON that you get, and it can be some issue with list or something like that.
Yes, let me check that. Okay, I will take a look as soon as tomorrow, probably. Tomorrow I will try and take a look at that. Okay, so after saying that, thanks. I just posted as a piece of mind here the TAPI RI links for generating the TAPI emulator that Karthik put out. And I also uploaded Arturo's emulator to the drive. So if you want the Java implementation that Arturo made, you can find it on our drive. So let's now go to the Jira stories, because I've added and modified a few and did something on that. So I started closing this because this was an initial task that I had to kick off the discussion. So now we started the discussion, so that's closed. There's going to be another one to implement it at a later time. I closed Karthik and Arturo's TAPI 2.1 emulator simulators for phase 1.5, so those were closed. I closed Alessio's extended optical connectivity intent with the suggested path. That's done. I closed the Hiroki Cassini integration because we merged the Cassini, the first initial Cassini driver for the box with the ONOS software, and that is currently in the master of ONOS, so that's done. And I also closed the update TAPI 2.1.1 from Hiroki, since that was also done. Arturo, do you want to give us an update on the device description discovery?
Yes. So I don't know if you have the Jenkins open over there.
I
I
can
can
get it. There it
show
is.
directly there. Yeah, in the garage. Sorry, not Jenkins. Yeah, okay, so there is a list of the mainly changes that we did in this new commit. So we removed the unneeded imports and added the splitted imports. We removed logs and we changed them into the debug level. We removed style references. We changed the package, so we've introduced in the ODTN TAPI package within the driver. We changed the class of the port number to the OCH, as we have, as Andrea has mentioned it before, and we introduced an annotation in order to include the mapping between the TAPI service interface points and the ONOS device port number. And we split the functionality of the TAPI discovery, service interface points discovery, in a couple of functions, mainly the create port description function, which is going to, the create port description function has been removed, and it has been replaced by two individual ones. One is the check valid endpoints, so basically it is identifying which are the endpoints that are basically, I think they are or either NMC service interface points or NMCA, if I am not wrong. I think that we make this type of double check among the service interface points in order to don't, let's say, include as external ports any OMS port that is within the OLS topology, internal topology. And we create a function that is like get OCH signal, which basically takes the information of the available spectrum that is reported by the OLS TAP interface regarding the service interface points, and based on this available spectrum, we construct the OCH signal that is associated to the OCH port. As Andrea has mentioned, we are targeting maybe an extension of this OCH signal or type of description that maybe allows us to don't specify which is the channel, the specific channel of the signal, as it has not been like provisioned yet. But so far we follow this approach of identifying the spectrum, the available spectrum that is reported by the TAPI SIPs and associated into the OCH signal spectrum. This is very consistent in the case that there is a fixed channel mapped into the service interface points, which is actually the case of APA implementation on which we are focusing on, but it will be not so correct in the case of flexible spectrum allocation for these NMC ports. But I think that until we don't have this unspecified signal for the port definition, this can be correct.
Okay. I added a few comments in there. They're not major comments. I think they're minor comments. I also just take a look at them, and as soon as convenient for you, just please do implement them. Just change the patch. So thanks for the overview. I think that is gonna be done pretty much soon, so that's good. On the same note, There is, since our discussion yesterday, I created implement the Lambda query for the open line system. That can be as simple as non-querying the device and just returning something, but is needed for the implementation. So I think that's the next step, as you guys know. Also today, I worked on a patch which is in Gerrit that inputs has an OLS type in ONOS. So that is because there was no OLS type inside the ONOS itself. So I added it. And I was thanks for Ramon for providing the comment. I might also look at. I think I will include a transponder, like transceiver, terminal transceiver type. I still have to debate exactly how to call it, but the idea is that there is no transponder type except for OTN, which is the one we're using right now, but. It's best maybe to define a full a transponder type.
Yeah, I strongly support that. This is something that when I was doing the OpenConfig drivers, it's like, okay, what kind of device do we add? And you have to hack with it's a RODOM, it's almost a RODOM, it's a packet. So since I saw that you're adding OLS, and since the list of devices is quite open and doesn't seem to be like a very restricted, you don't seem to be very conservative in adding new devices because it's quite heterogeneous. I think that it wouldn't hurt having a specific terminal device type.
Okay, do you think it's best a terminal device or just a transponder?
The thing is that I'm just using terminal device as the OpenConfig terminology. And in the good thing of this is that this includes any n times m box that we may end up having, because transponder is very specific, usually to 1 times 1. You also have mux ponders, switch ponders, and lots of combinations. So I'm not against changing the name because terminal device is not be beautiful, but to me it conveys a nice semantic that it's not just a 1 times 1, it's a box. You could look for another name. Let's leave it open, not maybe necessarily terminal device, but something that conveys that a transponder is one particular case of this device. It's better since we're doing the OpenConfig.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I will do that in the upcoming days. Then what I also created is since I spoke with Juan, the create flow rule programmable and create lambda query, the 7870 and 7871 for the Nokia transponder. Since at least that one we need because it's going to be the one we're going to use for the OFC demo. So at least an augmentation of that driver for the specific deployment in the Telefonica lab for the OFC demo that is needed. Obviously, there will be a need in implementing these two classes also for the Infinera, a transponder for NTT, and in the future also for Cassini. But I added these two tasks for Quan just to an example to everybody who needs to do that as a transponder driver. And for the OFC demo, we're targeting like initial code merging in ONOS by January 15th to 20th. So we have an initial implementation of everything that should work, and then we put it together and test it. Okay. Juan, Dominique, any thoughts, any comments? No. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Andrea.
Yes.
It's okay.
What?
I'm Alessio, Andrea. So I have just a comment regarding the discussion we had yesterday regarding the port type. That I fully agree with the solution that we decided to go. So to keep the port to OFH since the intent framework works with this solution. I don't know if this is how to say required for the OFC demo, but at a certain point we will also have to discuss the type of port for the client side, because from what I saw now in the draft device discovery that I saw in the ODTN folder, they are assumed to be packet or type packet, but currently the intent framework works with the ODU CLT ports. So I don't know. This is just to remember that we have to face also this point.
Yes, I fully agree with that. The thing is that for the cross connection between the client and the line side port, we're still keeping phase 1.0 as it is. So we're not changing the code of the driver to create that cross connection. We're keeping the things that were done in the past as existing and working for the cross connection between the client side and the line side. So at the moment, we're not using the intent for that. We're using the intent from the client side to the client side. Sorry, from the line side to the line side. So the client side port type is not really mattering at the moment, but I fully agree that in a further iteration of this, we should move also the things we currently do with just storing the configuration in the NetCFG subsystem to a full-fledged intent-based configuration of also the cross connection inside the transponder. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else? Okay, let me finish up my stuff. I did start looking at creating some Q&A for ONOS. That's important for us. And so the issue at the moment is that, so I have an initial way of doing this, which is through a few set of STC scenarios. If you're not familiar with STCs, this is a tool that it kind of goes through a set of static tests, no traffic involved, at least for many of them, that and it like brings up ONOS, checks the apps, checks that there is no error in the logs, checks like static things, like you can give it a configuration and it boots like the devices inside ONOS and checks that they are peer and all of that. So that would be the first step. The issue I'm facing is that we usually run this on our infrastructure inside ONF, and at the moment I cannot run the Docker emulators of the netconf transponders that we have, meaning like, for example, the different transponders that Hiroki created. I cannot run them through Docker in that infrastructure because that is based on LXC containers. So I'm trying to work that issue, but just as an update, at least I had some initial thought on how to do a little bit of verification around the implementations that we are doing. And since most likely this week, before the break, we are releasing ONOS 2.0, I would like to have at least a set of steps that needs to be tested that I can test manually for at least for the release, and then put those in place when we solve this Docker issue. So I'm going to work on that. Ramon, do you want to give us an update on the mapping?
This is the ever fighting ticket, and every time I'm trying to address it, I have problems. So as you know, this is done in the migrated code to 2.0 from ONOS, including the latest releases of TAPI.
Yeah.
Before you are aware of the different bugs that I'm finding. At some point, we had a problem with endpoints, then we have a problem with the context. Today, also, we noticed that there were bugs in ONOS saying there is no TAPI registered model from the young tools. And the issue was that the model registrator needed to be updated. The
Yep.
imports were changed, but not the actual dates. So it failed. Now I'm again fighting in order to have full scenarios because I'm mapping this to connectivity intent that can be seen from ONOS. So no major updates. Once I manage to have either bugs fixed from the TAPI NBI, and we can retrieve the whole context with all the SIPs, I can progress with this. So no updates from this side.
Okay, sure. I'll check this context issue, and then we can further the implementation on this. Another one that a few other tickets that I created are, well, that the next step for the OLS, which is the 7826, which is Arturo and Diego implementation, and also the people with help from the people from ADVA for the Flowable programmable to translate that into configuration for the end-to-end connectivity service. This is the power implementation that I was talking about. I have 2 tickets to test ONOS with multi-instance. That is an ongoing issue that still ties back to the Q&A, because for the same reason I kind of need an environment where I can deploy simulators through Docker, and that's at the moment not existing in ONF for now. I'm working to set that up. Then there is the FlexiGrid support, as we discussed earlier, the Lambda query for the Nokia, and the next an exploratory task for Hiroki to do check about the next steps for the Cassini demo. So going back to the agenda, I think that was all on my side. Do you guys have any questions, any comments? Okay. Then, if not, what I would like to do is that this is probably going to be the last. This is going to be the last call of 2018. So, because next week on Tuesday it's actually Christmas, so it's better. At least for us, it's a holiday, and we will skip the meeting. I will. Hopefully, if I'm not mistaken, the second. It's a Tuesday, so we might have the call on Tuesday the 2nd. Let me check that before I say anything bad. Oh, it's Tuesday the 1st. No, then we're not going to have the call on Tuesday the 1st, because that's it's New Year's Day, so that's a holiday. We will probably reprise on Tuesday the 8th. So that gives us about 3 weeks of actually leave on the project. But during the week of the first week of January, which is the 2nd to the 5th, the 4th actually, I will be available to work with anybody who is online. So I'm going to continue my tasks, and we can readdress everybody with the progress on Tuesday the 8th. Is that okay for everybody?
That's fine for me.
It's fine for me, but just one point I raise. If for the whole group, otherwise I will see how we can adapt.
Oh,
if
yes.
it's convenient to change the actual time slot. In short, it is very specific to me, but starting from the 15th, I will not be able to attend to this time slot. So it's just a point to raise whether we can find. If I'm the only one who is annoyed by this, it's fine. I will talk to Arturo or someone, try to follow up the minutes. But it can be an opportunity to re-ask if this is the more convenient time slot, or we can also look for another one that works. But again, I don't want to be in the middle or disturb anyone. If this is the most suitable, that's fine as well.
So thanks Raul for bringing that up. I actually wanted to bring up that, but forgot. So one option could be moving it from an hour later, meaning 6 to 7. That could be an option. In order to accommodate even better the people in the US. So I might send out a note and a poll to everybody asking what would be the preferred time, if to keep it this or to move it an hour later. But I would keep the Tuesday.
I mean, for me later it will be complicated, but if it is in another day, so far it's fine for me. It will be Thursdays, for instance.
Yes. Okay. Let's do this. I'll send out a poll and see what is the best way to address this comment from Mon. I would still, I mean, it would be very helpful to me and to the group, I think, have you still on the call. So I think we would like to find a possible way for you to participate. And if not, we can think about the best solution for you to still participate without being in the call. Okay? Okay. Any other question points that you guys want to discuss? No? Okay. If not, I'll say happy holidays to everybody and enjoy your families for as much as you can. And my best wishes for a happy new year when 2019 starts. And I'm always available via Slack, email, wherever you guys want and prefer to contact me if needed. And thanks a lot for the months that we have spent together on the project for this year.
Thank you very much, Andrea. You too. Enjoy your holidays.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And all.
Thank you. Likewise.
Holidays.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.